Hello and welcome to Beyond Borders, the LU Off-Campus Programs podcast. My name is Lillian Sandberg. I'm your host, and today I have an amazing guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Nathan. I'm from Seattle, and I studied abroad in Chile last term.
Awesome. And what's your major?
Spanish and global studies.
All right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were in Chile with
Yes.
IES abroad.
Mhm.
The first thing I normally like to ask people is, how did you decide on that program?
Yeah, well, for the global studies major, you have to study off campus. It's one of the requirements. And there were a lot of great programs around the country that I could have chosen, but I definitely wanted to do study abroad because when else am I going to have an opportunity to go abroad for that little amount of money?
Yeah.
So that was, part of the decision. That really wasn't ever a question, and I knew I was going to go somewhere Spanish speaking. Really, what it came down to is that I have a friend who lives in Chile. She went here for a year and transferred. So, also Chile has been a country that I've been interested in for a long time as well. Um, but yeah, the fact that I have a friend in Santiago kind of decided it. My other options were Ecuador, also, which is in a bit of a not a great political situation right now. A lot of violence on the street. So my mom didn't really want me to go to Ecuador.
Yeah.
And then the Argentina program was pretty short, so it was just kind of the perfect program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And what was your class schedule kind of like? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had 5 classes.
Okay.
1 language class, and then 4 like content classes, I guess. One of my classes, so I didn't have any class more than once a week. So on Monday I had, except for my Spanish class, which was twice a week. So on Monday I had Spanish. That was it. On Tuesday I had my human rights class. On Wednesday I had a class, and then my Spanish class. On Thursday I had another class. So I had 4 classes at the IES center, and then I had 1 class at the university that IES contracts with. And that class was only 8 sessions. So I was there for about from August to the end of November. But this class only lasted till the end of September. So that actually freed up my weekends quite a bit. So I had 3-day weekends the whole time I was there, which was nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what it was like. A little bit like Lawrence, except it's not twice or 3 times a week. It's just once a week.
And what was the class that you were taking at the university about?
It was about urban politics. So basically like gentrification, inequality, and segregation, which is something that you can see very clearly in a city like Santiago.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. And did you have like a favorite class that you were taking?
I don't know if I had a favorite class. I really liked all the classes. I really liked my Spanish professor. So I had a favorite professor. I don't know yet. The classes that they offer at the Santiago Center are all really good. And the faculty are all really good too. Did I turn this off? I want to turn this off. I guess. No, never mind. Sorry. I pressed a button. Yeah, the faculty are all really great, and they all work together. They all know each other. So I don't know. Like, if you have an issue with something going on in your class and you talk to a member of the staff about it, like, it's gonna get back to that professor, and they're gonna be able to fix it. It's just a very like tight-knit community at IES Santiago. So you really can't go wrong with the classes you're taking or the professors you have.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love to hear that.
Yeah.
It makes it easy on the students if there's
Definitely.
Not an avoidable or like a list of like, don't take this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of okay, well, first let's get into what the housing was like.
Okay. Well, there were 2 options. So there was the host family option, which was my and most of my colleagues' option that we chose. There is an option to live on a like a university
Hmm.
owned campus. I don't really know exactly what the I don't know the details of it, but you can live on like a university owned building if you want to. In some of my um, in the health studies program, I think there were more of the health students in that situation, but most of us lived in host families. So there's a group of families that are like known by IES, and every year they reapply to be host families, and so you
Okay,
just get placed with them basically.
gotcha.
You have like things that like they ask you questions that you fill out, and they based on your preferences and your lifestyle, they try to pick the best option for you. There are things that like with the culture are just going to be different no matter what.
Hmm.
But they do try to make it as easy as possible. And the host families are generally like pretty nice too.
That's
So
good.
at least the ones that have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Some people like it can be an adjustment for people that are starting out. I heard a lot of stories about that, but at least the cohort that I was with, because there were three groups in our cohort, and the one that we were with, I think, got pretty lucky.
Good.
So yeah,
Nice. And so, okay. And so the host families, I assume, are spread out amongst the city, or
sort
are
of.
they
They
centrally located?
they're pretty centrally located. They design it so that they're close to the IES center, and then um, so in Chile, every part of the country is part of a commune,
Hmm.
kind of like Italy and France a little bit, except for Santiago is made up of like 36 municipalities.
Okay.
Um, and there are ones that are known for being safer and ones that are known for being places where you would get robbed if you spoke English. So they they don't put you in anywhere unsafe. So
Okay.
there's probably about 5 or 6 communes they choose from.
Hmm.
So you're not going to be somewhere where you're going to get robbed at night. Um, if you get robbed at night, that's probably because you were in an area that was not where your host family was. I'm speaking from experience there. But yeah, uh, it's going to be pretty safe and also pretty close or accessible to the IES center.
Okay.
So you can take like metro transit usually, or in my case, I was close enough that I could walk every day, which
Uh-huh.
was really nice.
Cool.
So that's kind of how it's done. You're not going to be anywhere where like you're going to, I don't know. There will always be transit to where you need to go,
Okay.
from your host families to IES center.
Gotcha.
So
And so you mentioned the metro. Tell
yeah.
me a little bit about what public transit is like or how you kind of get around.
Yeah. Well, in Chile, it's one of those places where there's buses in the whole country.
Uh-huh.
So no matter where you go, there will almost always be some kind of public transit. And I traveled around the country more than other people did.
Hmm.
So I got to see it also in like other cities.
Hmm.
Um, in the capital, there's a big metro network. It runs from like 6 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, and it's one of the best in Latin America.
Uh-huh.
Um, Trains will come every like 3 to 4 minutes most of the day, and then during rush hour you'll get trains that come every 30 seconds because it's just so crowded that
Wow.
so it moves 2 million people a day,
Oh my
the
gosh.
metro alone. And then there's the micros, which are the buses.
Uh-huh.
In the capital, the buses are like very nice. They're very like buses that you'd see if you went to a major US city.
Gotcha.
um, Cities that are outside of Santiago, where you're going to see the more traditional, I don't know the right word, but like the older style of buses.
Okay.
And it's a really cool experience to
Hmm.
get to do that. It's pretty cheap to take the public transit in Santiago. It's about 75 cents to take the
Oh wow.
yeah. So it's not bad. And yeah, I mean, everyone likes to complain about public transit, no matter, like, it's never going to be good enough for anyone
Hmm.
really. But in comparison to the U.S., I mean, Chile has an incredible public transit system,
Okay.
and it's something that people will come here and they'll complain about how we have no public transit here.
Yeah.
So if you are a public transit user and you do the study abroad program in Santiago, you'll be able to get around the city
Hmm.
um, easily, and you can travel around the country pretty easily with buses too.
Nice.
So
That's good to know.
yeah,
Okay. And so is it also like a fairly walkable city or
it
not
depends.
all that much?
It really depends. I mean, um, Santiaguino drivers are pretty aggressive,
Uh-huh.
so you will get honked at for crossing the street when you have the right of way. Sometimes that can make it a little bit less walkable.
Yeah.
But all, like Santiago as a city is not very car dependent.
Okay.
I actually think there's a rule that you are only allowed to drive your car twice a week. That might
Oh.
not be the case. I never really fully understood that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just in the capital because that wouldn't work outside of the capital,
Right.
unfortunately. Um, so yeah, I would say it's pretty walkable, like in terms of people. Like everywhere you go in the city, people are walking,
Okay.
people are running, people are biking, people are like exercising in the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty big part of Santiago's culture.
Okay.
Um, yeah, car culture is much less of a thing there.
All right.
I will say, like, if you don't like someone's driving in a foreign country, it's a good idea to just keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Here, you know, you can flip someone off if they almost kill you when you're crossing the street. There, it's better to just
Move on with your
move on
day.
with your day. Yeah,
Move on with your day.
not always. And Chile is one of the safest countries in Latin America, and still,
Yeah.
yeah,
I got you.
yeah,
Okay. So tell me a little bit about like um so I guess for clarity's sake, you are the first person I've had on the podcast who's been to South
really,
America
okay,
um
that's cool.
from Lawrence.
Okay,
But I personally, not for study abroad, have been to Colombia.
okay,
So
very cool.
yeah. Anyway,
Do
that's a
you
little
speak
side note.
Spanish or?
No,
Okay,
not nearly well enough to
okay,
like survive.
okay,
I can mingle my way around.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Um, anyways, so tell me a little bit about just like what the culture is like in Santiago.
Well, I don't know. Like so the capital city itself is very young,
Mm-hmm.
very vibrant. It's very, for lack of a better word, it's very gay. Like, um, it's a very Santiago is a place where a Lawrence student should feel safe in
Okay.
terms of at least your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, you see people that are gay, that are transgender, that are like very openly that, and are walking around being themselves safely.
Okay.
Um, and that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of safety in general, I mean, that's a whole other story. Like, you may get robbed. I got robbed, but it's not going to it's unlikely to be because of your identity. It has
Uh-huh.
happened before. Obviously, like it happens everywhere.
Right.
But that's one thing about the culture in the capital specifically, but really all over the country, is that there's very much a sense of like live and let live. Somewhat brought left over from the trauma from the dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a deeply held religious belief, and someone has a lifestyle that doesn't align with that, if you're in Chile, it's more likely that person is gonna just mind their business and move
Right.
on. But
As you
people are
should.
pretty friendly. Yeah, I agree. People are also like generally pretty friendly.
Yeah.
There's definitely like, I don't know, if you some of the racism and the social bigotry and the xenophobia, it's very hard to not pick up on it because it's very similar to what we see in the U.S.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of like, those people need to go back to their country. We'd be somewhere safer if those people just went home. Despite that, they're still pretty friendly. Like,
Okay.
if you're lost, people will come up to you and they'll offer to help you
Oh, well, that's
find where
good.
you want to go. Right? Yeah. People. Chileans are very, very
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, I would just say like it's very cosmopolitan, Santiago. So you'll find like they love Japanese food, and Chinese food. They love, um, I don't know, like yeah, like Asian culture is very popular.
Hmm.
A lot of European culture is very popular. Um, there's a large Arab community
Hmm.
in Chile, so you'll find um, you really will find all kinds of things.
Okay.
And then when you get more out of the city, it really depends. But I would just say like it really Chile is a microcosm of the world,
Hmm.
really. So
Nice.
yeah.
And so like I guess in terms of more of like lifestyle things
Hmm.
are, or at least while you were there, are people more of like a like go out to eat? Are they more like cook at home? Are there grocery stores that are easily accessible that make it easy
Um,
to be flexible that kind of way? Or
well, I like people do like to go out in Chile and party a lot.
mhm.
The carretes will last from like 1 in the morning to 6 in the morning.
Mhm.
So that's one part of the culture. On the other hand, like your parents also like when you come home for dinner, and it's really
Yeah.
uncommon to live on campus there.
Okay.
People tend to live with with their parents and then commute to school, largely for economic reasons.
Mhm.
So you get like kind of a two-in-one thing.
Okay.
Um, and then in terms of like grocery stores and stuff, like there are you'll find like so Walmart in Chile is called Líder.
Mhm.
Um, and those are pretty common in the city and when you go out in the rural areas. It's also really common for like convenience stores to sell like produce and things like that.
Mhm.
It's not really like there is a lot of hunger in Chile, but it's because of poverty, not because of food deserts.
Okay.
So you're unlikely to not be able to find food. In terms of affording it, that may be another thing. Things are unfortunately getting more expensive in Chile, at least for locals. For
Mhm.
us, it's still pretty
It's a
cheap.
yeah, it's a fair
Um,
exchange rate. So.
but yeah, you're unlikely to like not be able to find food if you're there. Um, yeah, I mean, even in the more like even in the most rural parts of the country, you'll find an OXXO or some kind of market or some kind of mart. Usually, like there's usually like convenience stores.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll never like be too far away from something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Cool. And what are some of your favorite places that you went to and visited in Santiago specifically?
Oh, in the city.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because when you ask that question, my mind
Yes.
goes to outside of the
Well,
city.
let's start in the
Okay,
city. We'll
okay.
get there. But
Um, so I'm gonna be honest about like Santiago. Um, is like the city everyone makes fun of in Chile because it is the big, crowded, polluted monster of a
okay.
city. Um, but despite that, like it's not like a terrible place. It's just it's very
Very city?
it's a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
There's a neighborhood called La Staria, named for the street that it's on, where you can buy almost anything.
Mhm.
Um, it's probably like one of the only really safe neighborhoods of the downtown commune, because everyone's there. You know, I mean, people aren't really going to commit crimes against you if everybody's also
Watching.
able to see. Yeah, and yeah, you can like anything that you want, you can find there.
Okay.
Um, so we bought a lot of art that we brought home. You can buy like food, you can buy beverages, um, you can buy certain types of food and beverages. Um, yes, and the people there are all really, really, really
Mhm.
nice. Um, another thing I liked was the National History Museum in the Plaza de Armas, which is not a place to hang out if you don't have somewhere to go. Um, but there's a lot of really cool things in the museum. And then I would say La Moneda and Plaza de la Constitución behind La Moneda, that's the presidential palace where the coup happened. There's a statue of President Allende behind the palace
Mm-hmm.
that I really liked, and then the cemetery in Santiago. We went there on a field trip, but I'd already been there, and I went there by myself about probably four more times.
Okay.
Particularly Allende's tomb, and you can find a lot of like there's a lot of Chileans that I've really looked up to a lot. Had the opportunity to go pay my respects to them in the cemetery. So Salvador Allende, Victor Jara, Violeta Parra, Orlando Letelier. I mean, it's kind of amazing to like stand in front of the tomb of somebody that you've only ever learned about.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's a bit of an overwhelming place to be, um, there is a lot of culture and history in the city that you can find if you know where to look for it.
Okay. Specifically with the, how large of a cemetery is it?
It's huge.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain how big it is. Like
Like
it's
if you
massive.
if you could reference a
Mm,
thing at Lawrence.
it's probably about the size of Lawrence campus two times.
Oh my gosh, that's
It's massive.
huge.
It's the
Holy
biggest
cow.
cemetery, and then I mean you go to like I went to some smaller cemeteries in smaller rural areas where people were definitely buried too. But I mean, people like it's like the most famous cemetery in all of Chile. The former Honecker, the former chairman of the I don't I don't know my German history very well, but he was the former leader of East Germany.
Okay.
Um, Fled to Chile to escape a trial for crimes against humanity and is
Okay.
buried in the Santiago
Hmm.
Cemetery. So, um, even so,
Interesting.
yeah, I never actually got to go to his grave, but
Is that something that you've always like and that you even enjoy here is like visiting cemeteries, or is that something that you've picked up?
I would say it's something that I've picked up. Like
Okay.
I actually went to the Riverside Cemetery over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
but I probably wouldn't have thought to do that
I can.
before.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to like Bruce Lee's grave. It's the most famous grave you can go to in Seattle, but um, that's when I went to there. It was more of going for the person, less for the experience.
Uh huh.
But I did go back to the cemetery and saw some other famous people, and it's kind of it's almost like a city in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
And the Santiago Cemetery is definitely like a city. You have the rich neighborhood where all the presidents are buried, and they have all the mausoleums, and then you have like the poor neighborhoods. Um, it's yeah, like you can almost it's almost like the cemetery itself is segregated after they die,
Mm-hmm.
and it's to me like it made me think about how silly segregation really is. That people are so concerned about being next to people that are from a
Like a
lower
lower
social class.
class.
Yeah, even in death,
Yeah.
when you don't really care anymore. So I don't know. It's a place where the problems of society are very easy to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's a great country, but it has a lot of issues too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting. That was a really interesting point about the cemetery thing.
yeah.
I've never thought about it like that. But now that I'm thinking about it, I can see how
Mhm.
that would make a lot of sense. Not in like a positive way,
No,
but I do
but yeah,
see
I see what.
like,
Yeah,
you know, um,
I mean, I did get to go and uh, see the place where my host family's mom was buried.
mhm.
Um, and that's kind of in like the middle class part of the cemetery.
Oh,
And my host family was part of the middle class neighborhood.
gotcha.
So, I mean, it really just correlates with what you can afford. And a lot
Right.
of people can't. And then like Victor Hara, their family could afford something a lot more spectacular and grandiose, but um, since he is like an icon of the Chilean working class, he was never really upgraded to a mausoleum, even
Uh-huh.
when the family became more well known. So
Okay.
you do get things like that too.
Hmm.
And then there's also the other interesting thing I will say really quick is the vandalism in the cemetery,
Oh,
because everyone's buried there. Like all but three presidents of Chile are buried there.
okay.
Um, and the Pinochetistas do not like Allende, and they do not like the fact that his grave is displayed with such prominence. So they write things like "Viejo cobarde," old coward, on his grave, and then people will come back and they'll counter vandalize it with pro Allende messaging. There's also a senator named Jaime Guzman who's buried there, and he, on the other hand, was the person that wrote the Constitution of the dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
So he had like young people and students have vandalized his grave with like assassin traitor things like that. It's weird to think about. It's not something I would personally do.
Yeah,
Um,
that seems like a little bit.
Even though I obviously like with the anti Allende messages I don't agree, and
Mm-hmm.
with the anti Jaime Gustan messages I do agree. Like the idea of spray painting a
Someone's
tomb,
tomb is
it just
little.
feels wrong. But yeah, it was interesting to see at
Yeah,
least. So
I mean, I'm intrigued by that because I feel like I don't know. I feel like in the U.S., if a president was buried somewhere, there would be some sort of
yeah,
like I don't know, something that they're they're able to make sure that people don't do stuff like that. And so I guess I kind of expect that. But I guess if everybody is buried in that cemetery, more or less,
yeah,
you know,
and it's just like different ways of doing things
yeah.
for different countries. Like um, every president's grave is. I mean, one of the presidents committed suicide. In there was a whole civil war between the Congress and the president. Basically, I don't really understand the history very well, but the president was losing and committed suicide. And the Catholics believe if you commit suicide, you go to purgatory. Um, and so people to help him get to heaven and also to I mean I don't understand Catholicism very well, so I
Me neither.
apologize to any of my Catholic viewers. But the idea is like you write messages and he does favors for you, and then he gets to go to heaven, and you also like kind of like having like a injunction with God or whatever. So there's people on the well like on the president is Manuel Balmaceda, and you can look it up. But on the tomb, people will write things like that I passed my exam, and then people come back and write like, "Thank you for helping me pass my exam." Um, the cemetery officials don't like it for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, but it's definitely not done with disrespectful intent.
Okay.
It's so it's kind of a weird thing.
Huh.
Um, yeah, and that kind of so your question about like to describe Chilean culture, like it's one of those things where different aspects of it are going to come through in different questions, like it because like there's like all kinds of like little things that they'll do that I'll remember and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's something they do.
Right.
And then a lot of it like is influenced by Catholic culture or by indigenous culture or by Arab culture or Asian culture. It's just kind of like Chile is a melting pot for sure. I'll in one place I went to, which was one of like a rural island I went to, and there was two guys behind me speaking Chinese on a bus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just not something that you necessarily expect. Not in a
Right.
bad way, of course, but it's just a reminder that like the Americas are a lot more diverse than they seem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
And I was thinking back on the culture question again, and I know that you mentioned this a little bit about the social dynamics, but
yeah.
we also just briefly mentioned religion. And does it feel like a fairly like religious is most people are religious, most people have like those kinds of views, or is it like a keep it in the house, like mind your own business kind of thing?
Well, it definitely is a majority Catholic country, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really clear in the architecture, in the sayings, in many things. Like,
Yeah.
if you walk by a church, you are expected to show respect. But it is definitely like secular. Um, and very decidedly secular.
Uh-huh.
Like there is no state religion in Chile. You are free to not believe in God. You are free to criticize God. You're free to. I mean, I went to a city where there was a mosque towering over, and this was not the capital, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something I expected to see. So I would say, like, in terms of religion, like definitely very Catholic in terms of what people believe and the strength of their convictions.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, people are very generally people believe in the separation of church and state, and it's
Okay.
something that's written into the law, um, and the way the country's formed. So, like, it would be against the idea of Chile to make a state religion. At the same time, like, I wouldn't go around insulting the church
Right.
necessarily. So yeah, and then people are like people are very Catholic even if they're not religious too. So like people will participate in the Catholic culture. People will participate in like customs and traditions, and people will say, I'm Catholic," even if they're not really devout, committed Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like it's a really big part of the culture, and it's in some ways more of even a cultural thing than a religion thing.
Okay.
So
And you briefly, I mean, this is transitioning a little bit,
that's okay.
but you were talking a little bit about safety.
Yes.
Can you give us your go-to tips for those who might be interested in going to Santiago in the fall on like,
Yeah, or those
yeah,
who are there right
who
now.
are there
Yeah.
right now? Like, what is your,
So the country is still one of the safer countries
Mhm.
in the region, and it's one of the safer capitals. I mean, if you're going to get robbed in a South American city, it's better Santiago than Caracas or somewhere else like that. Still better to not get robbed at all, though.
yeah.
Don't fight for your belongings is the biggest thing, and this is stuff that like the center staff are going to tell you too.
Mm-hmm.
And you should listen to what the center staff tell you about that. Um, Unfortunately, most of downtown Santiago is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very big city. It's kind of bursting at the seams a bit, and there is gang activity at night. So if it's dark, you really shouldn't be in downtown, um, unless you are in that neighborhood that I described. And like when street vendors start packing things up, it's time to go. Don't be that guy that hangs around after everybody else, because that's when the weirdos come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better to not even be in their line of sight or perception. And then like yeah, listen to locals. Locals will tell you places that you shouldn't go. In terms of cities, Valparaiso is really popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it in the American way, unfortunately. Valparaiso is a very, very popular city. A lot of American and Canadian tourists like to go there alone without a tour guide. It's really unsafe as a
Okay.
city. There's a lot of robberies that happen there, a lot of hills, and it's a port. So, um, and there have been people that have been killed because they said no to a robber and fought for their backpack. Um, that like don't do any of that.
Yeah. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
With port cities, know which cities are ports. Understand that ports tend to be more dangerous.
Why is that the case?
I mean, I don't know exactly why, but I think it's because there's more opportunities to get away with things. Like there's I mean, drugs come in through ports, of course.
Okay.
So there's more crime. I think it's just like an opportunistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Chile is also very unequal.
Yeah.
So my other thing that I would say is, if you're a foreign student, there are places called poblaciones, which are like favelas.
Mm-hmm.
The people there are great. They're nice people. but you don't really belong in that community, it is disrespectful to go to those places as like a tourism thing. You will not be welcome there, and you could also get robbed.
Mm-hmm.
Like just make good decisions.
Yeah.
If it seems like a bad idea,
It
go,
probably is.
right. If someone is following you, leave. Like if I don't know, if someone tells you to come hang out with them, and they won't tell you which street they want you to go to, and they'll tell you when you get there, and you'll figure it out later. Don't go with them. Like those are things that like common sense, but also
But also, you're studying abroad and you want to try new things.
right. And you also don't want to be rude. Like
yeah,
it's a lot easier to say no, leave me alone to someone in this country where you like know the culture and you understand like really how to tell someone to f off, and than it is in a different country.
Right.
And it shouldn't really ever be your responsibility to not get creeped on or not get followed or stalked or harassed. But that's not
the world.
Yeah. So just be safe. And if somebody wants your phone and they have a knife, just give them your phone. Like it's don't walk around after 10 o'clock at night. Don't be on your don't have your phone out at night. Try to not have your phone out when you're walking. Try to not have your don't wear jewelry. Yeah, don't yeah, necklaces under your shirt, not over your, like, even little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put your hand out the window when you're in the car, which sucks because it's really fun to do that. But
yeah,
people have had their phones taken out of their hands. One of the people on the staff at the Santiago Center had her mirror taken off of her car one day. Like, people will just come by on motorcycles and
just rip
things off your car. Like, so just be careful.
Yeah.
And if it seems dangerous, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So
you'd rather not find out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of your other traveling. Tell me about it, wherever you want to go with that.
Sure. Well, one thing that you should know about Chile, if you're going to go there, is that the way the visas work, you don't need to really apply for anything. You can cross the border. You go through like the investigations police at the airport, and then you're good to go for 90 days, which means you have to cross the border after 90 days. So you have to leave the country, and as you have probably already guessed, 90 days is not the length of the so you will have to go to another country.
So there's no way of like applying for a visa?
I guess you could, but I wouldn't know because I didn't.
Okay, gotcha.
But where I'm going with this is that everybody, like almost everyone, goes
pretty much everybody
else.
Travels somewhere else. Okay, gotcha.
Whether that's Peru, whether that's Argentina, whether that's Bolivia even. So what I did is we went to Buenos Aires, had a 4-day stay there, and then for one day during the day, one day we took a boat over to Uruguay.
Okay.
And then in Chile, they have a system of intercity buses. So if you want to get to another city, you can take a bus. And you can get anywhere. Okay. So the longest bus is 30 hours. I did not take a 30-hour bus ride. And that'll drop you off about 15 miles from Peru's border, which is pretty cool. You can also go down all the way south, which is what I did. Not all the way south. So I went everywhere. Well, I went to one place in the north, kind of right before you get to the desert. And then I went everywhere basically between Santiago and Puerto Montt. There were definitely some places that were a little shady. Concepcion, in my opinion, is not a very cool
place to be.
No, it sucks. Don't go to Concepcion if you are in Chile and you want to travel. That's a place you can miss. But You can go to Chian. You can see the cathedral. You can see the place where Victor Jara and Violeta Parra were born. There's a waterfall, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes drive south of the city of Chian. You go to Puerto Montt. You can look out on the bay. Basically, like you're basically on the part of the world right before Chile breaks down into islands and stuff.
Okay.
And you can just like look out over
So
it
you're about as south as you can go in
without
South
getting on a
America.
boat or a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to my longest trip that I took was so you take a bus for 12 hours, you sleep overnight, to the city of Puerto Montt, and then from Puerto Montt you can take a bus to Chiloé, which is an island. It's a big island, basically, again, just like right north of the Patagonia. So you just take a 4-hour bus. You get on the ferry, and then you are dropped off in the capital. And from that city, you can go everywhere in the island because there are buses that go all over.
Okay.
So you can cross the island where there's somebody that's a friend of the program director that has these two dogs that I went to go see again, so that was cool. You can like there's one city called Kalen where you get to like the town center. It's a town of like 300 people. There's a cemetery overlooking the sea, and you can like hang out on the spit, which is cool. Like there's no shortage of opportunities.
Okay.
And if you want to go somewhere and then go to like somewhere smaller, like basically the way it works is you can take a bus to any regional capital, and from those regional capitals you can go anywhere.
Okay.
It's usually like 65 cents maybe.
Wow.
Not the
big
long
bus.
ride. The long ride, the longest bus ride I paid for, the most that you could probably pay for that would be $77, and I only paid
That's
about
really
33.
not that
It's
bad.
not. No, it's not.
Especially compared to like European travel.
Or
70,
here,
yeah.
right? Because a 2-day trip on the Amtrak here costs about $250.
Yeah.
In Chile, that maybe would be 150 at the most. Like, even if something's expensive there, you're still getting a steal.
Yeah.
The most expensive part of that trip is going to be the flight, probably.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's Chile really has everything. It has forests, it has islands, it has desert, it has mountains. You can go surfing or skiing if you want to.
So something for everyone kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And so as we're getting a little bit closer to the end of like so with that in mind, I guess, do you want to tell me about one of your favorite like stories or memories from your time abroad?
I guess if there was one more thing that I would say to people about this experience, the program director in Santiago is a really good person. I mean, the staff at Santiago IES Abroad Center are great, and Mari Carmen really does go out of her way to make the experience great. Even, I mean, she's in her 70s and she's still, going to conferences in Morocco with other IES coordinators.
Yeah.
She's still like, I don't know, like she really goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
And does way more than she should be doing. And I, despite the challenges, and I mean, given there were 10 robberies in our program out of like 36 students, so that's not great.
Yeah.
She really does go out of her way to make it a good experience. So yeah, I hope more people do it, because the program needs support. Unfortunately, like students not enough people are choosing the South America program. So if there's a program in like Chile, Argentina, Costa Rica, Ecuador that interests you, like you should take it.
Yeah.
Because these programs need support too, and the only way to keep them going is, unfortunately, for better or for worse, to
Keep participating.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really hope that more people will do this
And
program, because it's a great experience, and I hope that people can have the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
So
do you have time for one more question?
yes, I do.
Okay. What is one thing that you wish you would have known before studying abroad in Chile?
I think my biggest my biggest regret in Chile, I think, was just how at first I did not really take the safety suggestions very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of situations that I was in that I'm not going to get into any detail because my parents and teachers might watch this later, that were very stupid and that could have gone poorly.
Yeah.
And getting robbed is a really good way to learn about personal safety
Mm-hmm.
and how to make better decisions. Not that it's your fault if you get robbed, but also, you know. So I think learning to have some humility,
Mm-hmm.
I think would be something that I wish I had maybe gone in with more of,
Mm-hmm.
and just, because it's really easy to listen to someone's advice and then go, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna do whatever I want anyway.
Yeah.
And if you're going abroad, I would say, like, I wish that I had known more to kind of put that aside, because as my parents well know, that's often my reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, listen to the locals. Obviously, try to understand where they're coming from, and the context they're coming from. If someone's from a really rich neighborhood, they probably are gonna think that, like, anywhere poor is super, super, super dangerous, and you walk in and you blow up immediately. So take that with a grain of salt, but also, like, don't dismiss what people
Right.
tell you, and be humble. That's what I would. That's kind of what I wish I had gone in knowing, and I think it's something that everybody will experience while they're not being robbed but being humbled.
Yeah.
So at least I hope everyone won't get robbed.
No,
So
that would be bad.
that would be bad.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. My last thing I always let people do is shout out anything you do on campus that you want to shout out.
Join YDSA.
Awesome. Join YDSA. Perfect. All right, and tune in next time for Beyond Borders.